We are live. Hello and welcome to the Joe Wallis podcast, My Veteran Experience. And today I'm really excited to have this individual with me, someone I've known actually since 1982. And we probably leave some of those details behind. We don't want to kind of be the tell-all here, but no, it's great to be with Shaun Bradley today. And as I said, I met Shaun Bradley back in 1982, kind of plugged into him two or three times over some years and actually went to work for him. We'll get into that a little bit in 1992. So, Shaun, thanks for being here, man. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Joe. It's been a while since I've seen you, but yeah, you got a little bit more gray hair than maybe white hair. You look like your dad, and because your dad and I served together, and I knew you when you were the crown prince of Rota Naval Base. There's nobody as golden that I've ever seen as the son of a career man who's going to a service academy. It is the definition of being golden. But I met you when you were in high school, and my buddy and I were kind of the duty Naval Academy grads on the base, and we took you under our wing and probably told you some things that you came to some of our parties, and which were epic. And
as they say, advice.
Doing 5 things that you shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah. As they say, advice is advice.
That's right.
So, but yeah, I met you in Rota, Spain. As you said, my father served, and we ended up working together like 10 years later. So 10, 11 years later. So, well, great. So, we've known each other a long time, but we'll get to the part where I worked for you, and it was, awesome time of my life. It kind of, started my career. So, yeah, tell us about yourself and where you're from, your journey. You're not the young man any longer. So you've got you've had a great journey. It's been cool. You've done some super things. So go for it.
So born and raised Green Bay, Wisconsin, and worked at Lambeau growing up. Was a great place to grow up, and from there Naval Academy, and graduated in the great class of 78. And then when I was commissioned, I blew my knee when I was there, and was commissioned in the Supply Corps. And actually, I was restricted to not being able to go to sea. And so went down to, after graduation, went down to Athens, Georgia for my basic course. And was
the rough tour of Athens, Georgia.
Probably the best kept secret in the Navy. I went from the Naval Academy, which is a pretty austere place, and down to University of Georgia. And so it was like, whoa, this is what this is what real college is like. And made it out of there, and eventually made my way over to Rota, Spain, as I was in a squadron over there, and where I met you. And I had 2 years overseas, and being stationed in Spain was epic and great and everything. Eventually got my restriction, not being able to go to sea, changed, and ended up going on an aircraft carrier, the Carl Vinson. I was the Aviation Supply Officer on that ship 3 years. I told it up one time to how much time I'd actually spent on the ship, because I made 2 Westpac deployments plus duty. I was on the ship 23 out of the, I slept on the ship 23 out of the 33 months I was stationed there. Came very close to staying in, very, very close. In fact, I had orders that my resignation left the ship before the date time group on my orders came. So I was able to get out of them. But aviation supply officer and carrier, basically you have 84 planes break for maintenance, and maintenance becomes a supply problem if you don't have the parts. So I had about 100 guys working for me. That tour changed my life. I had an unbelievable E8 who became an E9 Master Chief. It's arguable who was working for who, to be honest with you. And I had great officers working for that I worked for. and it was a lot of responsibility and important, and it was great. I picked up a master's degree in education along the way, and was interested in being a principal of a school when I got out of the service. Came home to Green Bay, and my mom had been sick, and there's a local principal who was interested in getting me on track with that. And then I found out, here I've got a Naval Academy degree and a master's degree in educational leadership, actually the degree to be a principal, and then found out I was going to have to go back to school for 3 years to get a teaching certificate and then make $17,000 a year after that. And I was actually interviewed by U.S. News and World Report as somebody with all these qualifications that didn't fit. I was a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not interested. Like now they have troops of teachers and all these kind of programs. They didn't have this stuff back then. And so I thought, I can scratch that itch another way, which I would eventually do. But so I sent my resume out to the various recruiters of the day that placed military people. Back then, the industry was very, very small. And so they advertised in the Back of Navy Times. I sent it out, and I got the recruiters I dealt with gave me really good interviews. Abbott Labs, J&J, Pepsi, companies like that. But at a certain point, I was single at the time. At a certain point, I thought to myself, if all these jobs that these guys are trying to put me into are not that are so good, why aren't they doing them? They see them first,
Right.
and so then I thought, well, what they do must be better. So the next one to call me up was the Lucas Group, and they said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to do what you do," and that led me to a career in military recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And came to Atlanta, had never been here before, and was greeted with. I remember there was an offsite meeting. Joe, am I going too long? I mean, do you want to?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. No, I mean,
normally
I was gonna. No, you're fine. No, it's because there's a lot to say. So I was gonna dig in a couple. But no, go ahead. A couple things. I want to hit on, but go ahead.
Well, we would tell candidates, okay.
Your
I
time is
remember I
up.
used to tell candidates, saying it
I'll
twice.
do this. I'll do this.
Okay.
I'll do this if it's too long.
Yeah, saying it twice doesn't make it twice as good.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't point out something on your resume that you don't want the interviewer to know. That's it. Right. There you go.
So anyhow, I come to Atlanta, and they're coming back from a company trip, and they're all at this offsite location. They're all in Hawaiian shirts and Bermuda shorts, and I don't know this. So I show up, and I'm in a suit and everything. And so it's like, I'm not just this dork out of place. I'm the military guy. And so I'm greeted with, they said, "What are you going to be doing?" I said, "I'm going to be recruiting military." And they say, "Well, good luck. Nobody's ever made any money doing that around here." So that was my greeting. But they did have a highlight. This young gal who Libby, I guess she was a vice president, felt sorry for me and sat with me. And so eventually she would become my wife. And she was in a different department, so it wasn't that. But I give her a hard time. I say that I was a victim of sexual harassment because the big company leadership, I was dating the company leadership anyhow. And I met my future partner, Sandy Morris, the first day of training. And so I really hit it. Libby, and then
awesome.
And then Sandy.
So let's do this, Shaun. Let's do this. So before we dig into Lucas and your career, let's kind of go back. Let's go back a little bit because I want to ask you a couple things about coming to the Naval Academy and your time in the Navy. And I've heard a lot of these stories, some of them anyway. You've shared. We've shared a few stories back and forth in our time. But why the Naval Academy? You're from Green Bay. Looks like you were a football player, so you didn't look like you were. So what brought you to apply to go to the Naval Academy? And then we used to joke about the Supply Corps guys. And you say your knee got blown out. We used to joke that the guys would jump off the desk and break their knees to go Supply Corps. But yeah. So go back. So why the Naval Academy? And then your time there. What stood out?
It's why the Naval Academy? I was a football recruit, And I got hurt in high school, and I wasn't as good as I thought I was, but you know how that goes in high school. And I had heard from
Even from a golden boy.
yeah, I had heard from the Big Ten schools, Northwestern, Michigan State, Wisconsin. I got hurt carrying the ball my senior year, and about halfway through the season, broken dislocated ankle, missed my whole senior year of basketball, and the academy still was interested in me, and I thought, you know, well, this is an opportunity, and then I come from a working class background. My dad was a janitor, and it was like, I remember my mother saying, "Wait a minute, it's one of the best schools in the country. They're going to pay you. If you don't like it, you can leave up until 2 years. What are you thinking?"
Right.
And it was a very prestigious, and so it was like, how could you not take advantage of an opportunity like that? And
Right.
so that's kind of what it came down to. And I didn't know much about the military. I had an uncle that served in World War II, but other than that, but it was opportunity, and it was big time.
Yeah.
And it was when I went out there to visit, the guys seemed pretty cool. I liked them, and
Yeah.
so I thought, okay, this is. And my family was, you know, family support
Sure.
and family
Sure.
opinion matters a lot, and so I think that kind of pushed me there. But
Okay.
so that's how I ended up there.
And then what was kind of, I mean, it's 4 years. It's hard to just say one thing, but what did you take away from that time there? Like what had the most impact on you? I mean, I can, we all kind of have our
Yeah,
unique time at the Naval Academy. It's a unique place, so we all have our unique experience there.
I think the fact that you were going through it together with a bunch of good guys, there was no competition among the guys. At least I didn't feel that. It was, you know, cooperate with each other. But and I've told my wife this, that I think probably the biggest thing I took away was there's a I can remember days where you wake up, you go to formation, and you get, you know, there's something wrong with you at formation. Somebody's inspecting you, and you get nailed at early morning formation. Then you go to your class, and you get a pop quiz, and you blow that. Then you had a midterm or some big test that you took, and you blew that. And then you came back while you were gone, your room was inspected, and you got nailed for that. Now, it's not even lunch. And I'm
Well,
sure you had some days like that. It's not even lunch yet. And you have a choice. You have a choice that you can turn around the day and dig in and not have what happened to you before become a snowball where it just goes and goes and goes. And so all of a sudden the day destroys you. Or you can dig in and I'm going to turn this day around, and I'm going to make a special effort to make the rest of the day a positive one. And in its own way, it's been a life skill that that I've taken with me. That you have a choice when something happens that's not. Everybody has stuff happen to them daily, and you can let that affect you the rest of the day, or you can put it behind you and dig in and turn the rest of the day around. And so that's something that I'm very aware of that.
yeah. My response would be you shouldn't have put white works on that morning and worn a regular uniform. That was a choice. That was a choice you made at the first formation.
That's exactly right. The other thing I would tell you is I gained a lot of confidence that I could compete academically. And you know, I was not a star student in high school. I mean, I did okay. I've always read a lot, so I had good board scores, but I was not valedictorian in my high school class. But going to the academy, it's like, well, I can compete with these guys academically. I'm just as smart as these guys.
I mean, I went there, my father was a chief warrant officer, and not that I had that listed kid kind of thing, but I didn't know how I'd fit in. I mean, competitively, as you know, sports wise, I mean, it's a different level. You're at a different level competitively as an athlete, but then academically, you've got folks there that super engineers, smart, and when you're in that environment. But you said something earlier, is everybody's supporting each other as well. I mean, it's that no one's trying to crush you. Typically, anyway, when your company mates and all that are there to give you the gouge or help you out or do what they can
That's
to
right.
help you out. So that was a big part of it. Was sort of us against them too. The midshipmen versus the officers who were there, as you said, to inspect your room and make and ding you on that throughout the
Yeah.
morning or whatever. So, well, good. So then you ended up Supply Corps, and so your time on a ship, you said it changed your life because of maybe the leadership of your E8 or the leadership of your leaders, the ones who you reported to, but kind of go a little bit more into the change in your life.
I had when I reported within a week of the supply officer on a carrier. On an aircraft carrier, the supply officer runs the infrastructure. Supply department on a carrier has 1,000 people in it, and it's everything. It's the food, it's the supplies, it's the money, it's the ship store, it's the barbershop, it's the dry cleaning, it's the infrastructure of the ship is not in the down in the reactor or the engine room, or it's not in operations. It is the supply guy's job. So he is the infrastructure of the ship. Okay, the IT back then, the IT worked for the supply department, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And
IT. Did you say IT? Yeah, and this is before you became an expert in Excel spreadsheets, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I had a boss, Admiral Mitchell, Commander Mitchell, and I'll never forget it. And he was below zone selectee for everything. In fact, there was a double masters from Wharton. I mean, he was all that.
Wow.
And he, I remember back then there was on the Long Beach, they had a thing that they had what's called the Mod Squad. And it was the only ship that they did this in the Navy, but they had every rank one rank lower. It was kind of a trial thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So the commander was not a captain, it was a commander. The XO was a lieutenant commander, and the department heads were all lieutenants. So he was the supply officer on the Long Beach. I mean, it was like one guy in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I report to him and we meet, and he said, Shaun, I've never not been number one in anything I've ever done in the Navy. I expect your area to be number one. Let me know if you need my help. That was the sum total of the guidance I got. And I remember meeting him, thinking, this guy thinks I can do this. This guy believes in me more than I believe in myself. And so it caused me to raise my game so that his confidence in me was not misplaced. And we had a very special relationship, and I became better than I ever thought I could be. And he believed in me. And I saw that effect on me. And for the rest of my life, no matter where I've gone, I've tried to model that and see the effect of, if you believe in somebody, it's like a magic potion that they will gain confidence that they didn't have. They will start to believe in themselves. And it changed my life, how the effect that he had on me. And then I had a great, there's something as an officer, and I know you don't know how this feels. When the senior enlisted in particular talk to you, you know whether they think you're worth a damn or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. And they say, Mr. B or hey LT, or there's a way that they have of communicating with you while still being respectful, that you know, and they know.
Mm-hmm.
Gaining the respect of those guys was such a great confidence builder for me, that I felt that they believed in me too. Yeah. And so when I say that tour changed my life, I kind of had it, the guys who reported to me and my bosses, and it really, it changed that kind of trajectory of my life.
Yeah, the carrier too, it's sort of, I mean, you do well in a carrier, the visibility of that community of officers and all that, I think is big. It can
Yeah.
make a difference, and sort of like Marine Corps being on the MEU, you get that visibility. There's a lot of visibility in a MEU, and you have the leadership there that are going places in the Marine Corps, and the carrier is a place where people shine and people remember who they are. So, well, good. So let's move on. You started off kind of talking about the first day when you were sexually harassed at Lucas Associates and ended up marrying your boss.
But she wasn't my boss. She was a different
Okay.
department.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So she was we weren't that bad. It
It
wasn't.
bordered on fraternization
Yeah.
regardless. So let's be straight. No, okay, I'm just kidding. But yeah. So going to Lucas, I think that as you said earlier too, that somebody says that nobody's ever made money in the military recruiting side. So, probably motivated you for one, but also scared you a little bit. And then, so go through your time at Lucas, and then what you did
Yeah.
after, and then maybe we can insert where I joined you and talk a little bit about that.
We first year we placed. I started in August of '87. First year we placed 4 people, which is nothing. In 1990 we placed 400, and we changed. It was just me, but we changed how that business was done. We didn't create the business. The military. And now there's nonprofits and there's a bunch of people doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Back then, that wasn't the case. I was at the launch pad when the industry changed. And what we did was we industrialized it. We started mass producing placements. And it was interesting because during that time, the future leaders or founders of the 3 companies to this day that dominate that industry were, I became a vice president at about a year in. And so all these guys that were the future founders or leaders at one point in time were all my guys. It was Bradley Morris, Orion, and Lucas. We were all together, which is an extraordinary thing when you think about it, because to this day, those 3 now dominate the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But what we were able to do is Lucas had multiple offices around the country, and we were able to have those offices. Prior to that, they were all islands. Nobody worked together. We got them all working together with a candidate in San Diego that wanted to live in Atlanta, or a client in Chicago could come to an Atlanta hiring conference and a Dallas conference, and one actually the office was in Irvine, California. We changed the commission structure. We changed the compensation. So everybody was now, the whole pie got bigger. And so everybody was making more money. Everybody was working together. 400. And that's short of a time period without some structural changes. And we also had, early on, that some of the key people were team players. So some people made some sacrifices for the greater good. They ended up making great money, but there were some risks involved, and some people had to believe that this was the way forward. And so that was it. But a guy named Eric Stagliano, who Joe, right?
I do.
He
The Stag Brothers.
Yeah, he created the model for how to sell military.
Yeah.
Because back then there was not anti-military, but people were military ignorant. And so typically the HR people would be told, well, this job needs requirements A, B, C, and D. Well, we would say to them, well, our guys don't have any of those, but they have E, F, G, and H, which are more important. And so what my guidance to my people, even as Bradley Moore's days, was just get them to church. It's a missionary sale.
Yeah.
Nobody believes like a convert. Just get them to church. Get them to come and interview some military. And once they came in and interviewed military, they were like, oh my God, we had no idea these guys were that good.
And you, just real quick, you mentioned Eric Stagliano, how interesting these connections are. So I lived in Japan between 1973 and 1976. And Eric Stagliano sponsored a wrestling clinic for middle school kids that I was in.
Really?
Yeah, the Stagliano brothers it was Frank, Eric, and John,
Yeah.
and they were all in Japan. They were well-known athletes at Yohai, which is the high school for Yokosuka, Yokohama. And yeah, my sister was classmates or friends with Frank, the oldest, and knew Eric as well. I mean, knew all of them. She was in high school with them over there. So yeah, we knew the Staglianos in Japan. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Joe, if there's anything that I know to be true, is I've never met anyone in my life who knows as many people as you know. I mean, we should have not the 6 degrees of separation with Joe Wallis, but like the 2-degree separation of Joe Wallis. It's unbelievable.
It's been fun. I've been lucky to moving around, and I've always been somebody to keep in touch and kind of, notice people or keep those ties at least warm. But no, it's not about me. So great. You're at Lucas, you're doing great things, you're growing the business, and then go from there.
We started Bradley Morris in '91. Sandy Morris and myself. Sandy, who had not been in the military division, but she had a different company, and we had always gotten on. And I had made a lot of money and had $100,000 in the bank. And I thought, now if I'm going to do this, I didn't see Art Lucas adopting me in the future, and so yeah, we started Bradley Morris in executive suite down the Galleria. For those that don't know what executive suite is where you have a tiny. The office was about the size of my wife's closet right now, and so there were 3 of us in there, Sandy, myself, and we had a admin assistant, and we didn't take out any loans, self-funded it, 16 months out of paycheck. Years later, when we were named a top company in the state in 2001 and went to the White House and met the president and all that cool stuff. I was interviewed on TV, and the announcer or the interviewer said, "Well, I see you got this big SBA award and you never took it on any SBA loans." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "It never occurred to us that anybody in their right mind would ever loan us money. So we never even asked." So we were self-funded, and eventually things turned, and we were able to move out of that space into a real office space, which is where you were for a lot of your career, and hire some great, fantastic people, and grew, and we would eventually have 5 locations and 150 people more or less, and placed 15,000 people. We got into not just placing officers, people like you and me, but enlisted technicians, IT, and all that goes with that. So we had a unbelievable run.
Yeah, and I can quickly tell the story of how I ended up there. So, as we said in the beginning, I met you in Rota, Spain, and you invited me to a party at your place with your roommate Frank Beam there and some other folks. It's a little bit of drinking going on, but it was Rota, Spain. And but you may not remember, but I was visiting a high school friend in Atlanta, and I stopped by the Lucas offices. You're Powers Ferry, I believe. And I came into the office, and you looked like you were stressed out. I mean, it's like sweating, and then literally I said hello, and I was probably there for 4 minutes. And you're like, "Hey, Joe, I'm really busy." So I stopped in and said hi, but I had seen your name in the back of the Navy Times as the Lucas guy, contact Shaun Bradley. And I go, I know. And my father I think he kept up with you the tour after Rota, kind of knew where you were. I would check in. I'd ask my dad about, did he know anything about you because you had given me such great advice when I met you in Rota. and so I stopped in and saw you. And then I ended up taking a job through Lucas, when I left the Marine Corps. I was in San Diego and I went to New York, and I wasn't real happy in New York. It just the job and the location wasn't me. But I came to Atlanta to get certified. I was delivering leadership development programs, and there was a corporate program that you get certified to deliver. This company owns the leadership program. And we went to dinner when I was in Atlanta, and you were telling me about Bradley Morris, and you paid for the meal, and it was kind of, I remember walking away going, wow, he's making a career. And then a couple months later, I called you and said, hey, I want to interview, and then you invited me to Atlanta. And at the end of the day, you asked me how the day went, and I said, yeah, it went well. I think I interviewed with 3 companies or something. And you asked me if I wanted to do what do Bradley Morris, be a recruiter. And I never thought of being a recruiter. But I trusted you. And I thought, wow, I didn't know what 100% commission meant, but I found out quickly. But the first day on the job there in the Galleria, you handed me, and I remember 71 folders with a sheet of paper in it with contact information. You go call these folks up and get them in our program or make sure they're still with us. So I went to work, and you gave me a corporate Amex, and I started traveling, and I'd never filled out an expense report, thank God, because I do it here often. And yeah, I was there 6 years, and it launched my career and what I do today. Fortunate, blessed that you thought I would do well in this business, and yeah, you made it happen. So I was there 6 years. Loved seeing it, all the growth we had. We hired a bunch of other folks there. We had a great time. We had our version of Hawaiian shirts and Bermuda shorts or
That's
whatever,
right.
and meals at the Mexican restaurant and all the things that we did, which was just awesome. It was really a family environment, which was great. Yeah, it was just a great time in my life. And I met my wife when I was in Atlanta, and whatever, all good, positive things. And like I said, it kind of changed my life in a sense that I'm still doing this for a living. Yeah, I really enjoyed making an impact on transitioning service members and being a coach and a mentor and offering advice. So yeah, I'm here today because Shaun Bradley thought Joe Wallis might do well in this sort of business. So thank you for that. And yeah, it was a great 6 years at Bradley Morris.
Well, obviously I called it right, because look what you've done since. So yeah, we had some great times. We helped a lot of folks. We made a lot of money, and we had a lot of fun. And you
3
can't.
great things.
That is the trifecta right there.
That's the trifecta. Yeah. So I mean, that first year, as I mentioned earlier, the 100% commission thing, I mentioned it because you had just started the company literally in the year before, and it takes some time to grow and those sorts of things. But we had good people, we had fun, we definitely had fun. There's no question there. There's no question we had fun, and we worked hard.
Yeah.
I came in early, I stayed late, I traveled, did some great stuff, and eventually, as someone described it, it started raining. And it was good to see the fruits of our labor. And the company's still around today,
Yep.
doing great things. I do some work with them, so I attend the Veteran MBA conference that they've acquired. So and a couple of the folks that started when I was there are still with the company. So yeah. So talk a little bit about kind of, you finished up your time at Bradley Morris, and then you've been doing some things since. So
yeah, we
go into that a little
went
bit.
through we went through a very tough time, 2001 to 2004, and we had done 15 million in sales that year, which in permanent placement in recruiting is a lot. And we're coming back from, that's when we went to the White House and met the president, all that cool stuff. And as that recession, as we're hitting the ground in February, that recession is hitting the ground, or hitting as we're landing. And okay, recessions happen. Okay. 9/11 hits.
Mm.
And all of a sudden we go to war. And not to ever equate anything of what we did with that, but it had its impact. And we are a military placement firm. There's nobody getting on the military.
Stop gap.
So envision a paper company, and one day there's no trees. And so our sales decreased from 15 million to 6 over a 3-year period. And we adjusted fire a little bit. We placed people that had been out a couple, 3 years. You know, people in the Air Force were not getting out as much as the other, or they were getting out as, you know, certainly the Army and the Marine Corps and the Navy, there was nobody even allowed out, and they were calling people back in. But we got through it, and then things turned in 2007. And so we were back better than we were before. Actually, the original 15 million wasn't even 15 million, because we had a bankruptcy court judge tell us, you learn these things, nobody on the planet has the authority of a bankruptcy court judge. There is no appeal. And a client had given us $600,000 that they should have given to somebody else. So we had to pay $600,000 back. We found out after things are going south. So that was a nice little present we got one day. But anyhow, we turned it around, 2007. I thought, you know, I could never leave my people when times are bad. I just couldn't do it. But now times are good. Now may be the right time. All my guys were in place, and you know most of them. I mean, it was a talent farm. We had 26 Academy grads working for us at Bradley Morris, which is a higher percentage, I think, than any place on the planet, including the academies. And so it was a talent farm. And the people who were running the company weren't even Academy. I was myself and TJ Morelli were the only ones. So those guys are better than the Academy guys. But
Always.
I thought that might be the time. And so I decided to sell, and was young, and sold at 51, retired early. I'd never really taken a day off of work. And my kids were young. I got 5 kids. They were all teenagers at the time. And I coached year round, did while I was doing the Bradley Morris thing, and retired hard. And I mean, I pressed the coast button as hard as I pressed the work button, and wrote a book about my story, and then took a number of years off, and now I got back in the game. I'm a Vistage chair now, which I held.
So real quick, what's the name of your book? And
it's called Small Business Veteran. It plays both ways. I'm a veteran in the small business world, and I'm a veteran that got into small business. My journey from Lambeau Field to the White House. You know, Lambeau Field is working the games, selling peanuts at the games growing up, and White House is when we met the president. So but it's my story. It's the book I would have wanted to read to a 30-year-old Shaun Bradley. It's what I learned. It's lots of stories in it, but it's honest. And you've read it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And
yeah. It's about Bradley Morris.
Yeah, but the audience that I really cared about were the Bradley Morris people. Yeah. And they all, did I nail it? Did I describe what it was, the magic that it was? Because Bradley Morris during that time was unbelievable, and unanimously they told me that I captured it.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier the time I was there, you know, we were just getting started. Everybody was working hard, and you know, we weren't making tons of money at that point, but it was that family environment. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's kids. We had parties, Super Bowl parties, whatever. We played sports. I mean, I was just thinking, as you were talking about, I was thinking of like the typical day, right? I mean, what did we do? So we come in the morning, we're on the phone, we're doing our thing. At lunch, we go to the gym, play basketball.
Play basketball.
Yeah. Or I would go play tennis. And then after I played tennis, I'd jump in the pool. And then I'd put my shorts back on and come back to work. Then I'd work in the evening till whatever, 5 or 6 or whatever. Or if I'm on a trip, it's the same thing. So our day was work hard, play hard, and we supported each other. Like I said, we knew everybody intimately. We were small enough to do so. I mean, you know, dynamics change as companies get big. It's never, you can never have the same magic when you're a 200-person company than when you're a 10-person company. It just isn't the same. But yeah, those we went to movies. We used to we threw popcorn at each other at the movie theater. We went to the Mexican restaurant for lunch and hired people. I mean, there's all sorts of things that took place during our time at Bradley Morris, and it was just a great environment. And it's hard to replicate, especially in a corporate. And I'm at a big corporation now, and I'm on a small team, and we have other military folks, so it's kind of has some pretty cool dynamics on the team I'm part of. But still, I'm in this massive corporation, and expense reports and emails and bureaucracy, all the things that you kind of work with. It's really hard to replicate that you're a part of a 10-person, 12-person company, and you come to work every day, and you hear, there's not the water cooler conversation. There's just the whole office conversation, and everything about everybody, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we were all young, and we didn't
Yeah,
have kids, and there's
yeah,
all that, but there was a special magic there.
yeah.
It was
Oh,
people
no
have
question.
people have said it was Shangri-La in the business world. It was a you couldn't just take it and duplicate it, and it was
Yeah,
something.
we were in Galleria 200. I think had a billionaire in the penthouse suite. We were we were downstairs in shorts and t-shirts. People probably thought we were cleaning up, after everybody else. But we're coming in. We're in a great office space in this. Yeah, it was different. It was cool. It was and yeah, it is. It's hard to replicate that magical time. So I look back at it. I hired someone to work with me who I worked with during those years. I mean, you know her.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you got. Well, the way I describe it to people, because now with what I do, I help. Uh,
Yeah, go into that a little bit. So you work for name, give the name again.
it's called Vistage, and how I found it, I didn't know anything like this existed. Larry
Vistage.
Costadius, who I think class 79, and he's in Atlanta, and he and I got together, and I knew him well, but not that well. And he said, you ought to be a Vistage chair with your background. I said, what's Vistage? I didn't know anything like this existed.
Yeah.
And what it basically is, it's a peer group of CEOs of small and medium-sized companies. And the idea is they help each other. I help them with all the challenges that go with running a company. And I didn't have that. And there were times I would have given anything to have talked to somebody outside of my world. Yeah, you could talk to people, but there's only so many times you can go to the well and say, hey, let me, I got this problem. Can you tell me about it? When you have a group of people that meet monthly, and I meet with them individually every month, there's history that relationships that they form with each other. It's confidential. And so they talk about their challenges or their ideas or their opportunities. And so I run 3 groups in Atlanta. I have 45 guys, 45 members, male and female. And so that's what I do. And it's a fantastic thing because
So you're,
sometimes,
so you're sort of a mentor coach to these folks.
yes. And partly it's me doing that, a facilitator of the group. But what's more important than me, and I have the experience because I've been in that position, it's them with each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And there's no competing industries, all different industries. So it's the opposite of an industry support group.
Mm-hmm.
So there won't be anybody who does what you do. So you get a little bit different take sometimes in different industries on how to solve a problem. But that's what I do now. And so it's good. I like it.
So what are some of the like key or not key? What comes up the most? Like, so you had this experience as someone who started their own small business. You funded it yourself, extremely successful. You spent many years there and then retired, and you have all this experience and things that you went through and challenges where, as you just said, you wish you had someone to bounce ideas off of. What are some of the 2 or 3 things that kind of come up the most for these folks?
Yeah, Joe, that's a great question. I would say what's very common is you start a company and you get to a certain point, and the people that were there and what they're doing, you have a loyalty to them, because they help get you where you are, but they don't have the skills to take the company to where you want to take it. And so you're torn between taking the loyalty to the person, but also the loyalty to the company and other people, and balancing that act. Or if you bring in somebody in a different position, then how is that person going to react to it? Because they're not the person chosen. So it's a very emotional decision for somebody to make in that position. And typically in small and medium-sized companies, they don't have a bench.
Mhm.
They can't afford a bench. Like GE, they got, 100,000 people. Microsoft has a bench. Small and medium-sized companies don't have a bench.
Mhm.
So how are they going to do this, with the person who's already in the position? Other times there's you've got somebody that is doing a great job, but they're a culture problem. And do you get rid of them because they're a cancer to the company, but their performance is, let's say they're in sales and they've got a relationship with these clients. Well, if I get rid of them, am I going to lose that business? What do you do with that?
I mean, I'm happy the HR department didn't exist when I was at Bradley Morris. It might have been a little trouble.
Yeah.
No, those are great examples. I mean, you may have more. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I will tell you, sometimes I get asked what I see common among my members. And it's an interesting question, because I've got a cross section of industries. I've got a cross section of types of people. But there is something that I've seen pretty common. Okay. It's not their education level. I've got medical doctors. I've got 3 doctors in my groups that run different types of practices. People with Ivy League MBAs. I've got people, the closest they've ever been to college is driving by one. Okay. I mean, no formal education to speak of. I've got people that are to the manner born from money. I've got people that were born dirt poor in Appalachia, mining country. That's not it. But I have seen 90% they married well.
And what do you mean by that?
They have solid marriages.
Okay.
Their spouse is supportive. That they don't have that conflict with their spouse supported them taking the risk to start a company. They believed in them. They don't get the tug and pull. When are we going to make money? When are we going to make money?
So a supportive and happy environment outside of their work, kind of.
Yes. And what I personally believe is, if you don't have alignment with your personal and your business life, eventually one is going to cause the other to crumble.
And what just curious on my part, what's the age range of most of these people that start their own business?
Well, starting and running, I don't get them at the startup.
Okay, so running okay.
I would say, because there's a cost to being in a group, and it's not cheap. And so they're not, when they're first starting out, they don't have the money to pay.
Yeah, they're not. Okay.
And they're also not a fit, because these guys are running their companies now, and they're in a growth phase, but they're past the, are we going to survive? Probably 35 to 55.
Okay.
Probably
So
40 to 50.
Pretty good range. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There's a few outliers, but I would say mean probably 45 to 50.
And how often do you meet with them?
We meet as a group once a month, and then I meet individually with them every month as well.
Okay. Cool. And this keeps you busy. It keeps you in the game, so to speak, or what's the draw to do this? What's the...
Yeah, well, yeah, it does. And there's an accountability for myself, that I'm accountable to my members. I got to make sure I have my act together, that our meetings are going well. And, these are pretty impressive people. So there's an accountability that I need to have my act together. So, and I like being I like that. But the other thing, Joe, is I took years off. I took my retirement years early. I mean, I worked out every day. I wrote the book. I hung out with Libby. I coached all my kids' teams.
Waffle House.
Waffle
Okay.
House. That's right. So I kind of had my retirement years early. So I got
The reason I say that, Shaun and I usually meet at Waffle House when I'm in Atlanta. So
right.
we meet there for that. It's that great. What's the sausage egg sandwich is my go-to
Oh
at
my
the
God.
Waffle House, man.
Well, there's the Atlanta fine dining trifecta. There's Waffle House, there's Chick-fil-A, and then there's the Varsity.
That's true. All three of them.
That is the trifecta right there.
They stick around. Those ones. Well, you said this earlier, and you've actually repeated it several times during this discussion on your career and about family and about having a supportive family and a family that's there by your side and not. You mentioned earlier, but when are we going to make money and what if your family life and relationships aren't solid, it obviously impacts your work life. And I know your family. I mean, I think I saw all your children when they were little ones. And that was another great benefit of the environment we had at Bradley Morris and you getting to know people's families. But in that sense, I mean, you said you have 5 children, so God bless you for that, for one. Having 5, a good Catholic boy from Green
That's
Bay,
right.
comes in with the 5 kids. I've got a sister with 5 children too, and I know peripherally what what that entails. But yeah, so I mean, you obviously had that same support, and it was a positive aspect of your career.
Yeah, I was fortunate because Libby had seen us grow at Lucas because she was the vice president, so she kind of knew what kind of potential was there. But when I decided to start Bradley Morris, she was like, "Okay, well, you figured it out before." There was like there's confidence, and then there's beyond that, whatever Libby had in me was like total blind confidence. It was almost too much, to be honest with you. And then when I decided to sell, she said, "Okay." I mean, she was just
Yeah.
I didn't get any pushback. I didn't get any question. I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
And so in its own way, it was a great gift.
Yeah, I mean, I was single during that. I mean, I'd met Shannon in my last year at Bradley Morris, but I was single those, and you guys were my family. The people I worked with day to day. I played tennis with Bill Bassnett, and we played basketball with you and Wes, and we were all kind of going through the same thing, and we would do the Saturday night scheduling to eat pizza and I'd proofread whatever we were putting out there, and those were some. Yeah, for those of you that want to kind of understand old school running a business, I mean, we were licking envelopes and sending out prepaid postcards, and we were staying up to midnight to put together a schedule of interviews, which today you probably put into some software package and it spit it out for you in about 5 minutes. But we were it was hands-on before the internet, really, to some extent. And we were licking envelopes, literally licking envelopes. And I'm not talking 5 or 6, I'm talking thousands.
We're talking,
And we were grabbing phone books. We were grabbing phone books on military bases to see who we would mail to. So I was on the road. I was sort of your road warrior. And there's some great stories from that, which luckily social media didn't exist back then, or I may have been in trouble. But yeah, I was your road, and I loved it. It fit me as a person, and I kind of knew people everywhere I traveled, pretty much, which made it even more exciting. But yeah, you like you said, the kind of when you first started this. Or when not when you started this, when Admiral Mitchell or Commander Mitchell says, "Hey, I'm number one, but go do this and let me know if you need help." I think you sort of said the same thing to me. Here's 71 folders. Go to work. And then you sat on the other side of the office and you took phone calls and did, boss stuff. And I got on the phone and started calling people and scheduling interviews. So it was and I kind of like that. I kind of like the Joe, here's what you need to do. Here's the explanation on how to do it. Go do it. I sort of like that environment I'm in it today. I have a really fortunate position today where my boss, gives me a little bit of direction and he tells me to go do it. So,
Well, what you're describing, Joe, is back then. Maybe there's people on this podcast that it's the startup. It's the team at the startup, and it's a special time. You're all in it together. There's no such thing as working hours. It's getting the mission done, and whatever we have to do to make it happen. It's a special time, and it takes special people. Where it's all about team. It's all about team. It's all about getting it done, and getting it done together. Yeah, there's no question. No question.
Yeah. We had some great people we worked with. So
yep,
it was it's a good time. So, well, with that, anything you want to add? So, like I said, I've known you since 1982, and in Rota, Spain, which is a special place in my life since I was born there. My mother's from that area, but anything you want to add? So
no, I'm proud of you. You've gone on and done very, very well at Microsoft. No surprise to me, and you've done a great job of staying in touch with people. And you've got Bradley Morris alums that are with you.
Yeah, I was just going to say this. It's kind of a testament to your assessment of talent that I hired 2 people that you hired into Bradley Morris in the past. Beth, someone who I worked with and very close to, and then someone I didn't know at Bradley Morris that you hired later on that are currently working with me. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've always been pretty good at identifying talent. Yeah, not good at a host of other things, but I was always pretty good at identifying talent and recruiting it and retaining it, which is a big thing to be good at, and I recognize that. But there's plenty of other things that I was not good at. Well, go ahead.
No, Shaun has a mean 3-pointer for those of you that want to play the basketball court. So Shaun could launch a break from 3 points and put it right in. So we used to do a lot of basketball playing.
Well, in fact,
remember we won the company 2-on-2 tournament that time.
I somewhere I have a picture of that, and we have a company picnic. Yeah. And what are we doing? We're having a 3-on-3 basketball tournament.
literally elbowing each other and killing each other.
Yeah. Or when the clown got thrown in the pool.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think there was a famous incident at a Super Bowl party that I get reminded of periodically.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's probably not anything we should talk about.
That's not for public consumption.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Shaun, it's been great. Thanks for sharing your story. It's an incredible one. I'm lucky and fortunate to have been a small part of it. And like I said, it was kind of defined my career. It's defined kind of how I approach what I do in my business relationships and personal relationships at that. So it was, for some reason you thought I could do this. You gave me the opportunity and I took advantage of it. And, I've gone on and stayed kind of doing similar work. So it's been cool. It's been great to know you and your family for this long. We're not spring chickens anymore. It's funny. I was just at a Service Academy career conference and they say I'm class of 2018 and you kind of cringe.
Yeah, I know. And they're all in such good shape. All these.
Oh God, yeah. Well, it's good to see the women now, who are nukes are actually on the sub. and you see them flying F-18s and F-35s and doing all the things that they were really restricted in doing uh, during our early years in the military. I remember they were admin officers or 35. They had a designation, but I was there and there was a whole group of females that were nuke officers on the sub and, flying aircraft and doing all the sorts of things that they were not doing with folks that we went to the academy with and served with and everything else. And that's just one. I mean, I have two daughters and you have daughters as well. So, knowing that there's opportunity, regardless of if they go in the military or not, that's there for them, that the things have come a long way. So
I agree.
yeah. All right, Shaun. Well, hey, again, thanks for the great discussion today. Great to see you. Hope that I will be in Atlanta actually for the Veteran MBA Conference, a Bradley Morris event in late September. Oh, no, October. So we'll get together.
Well, I would love that. Okay.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Shaun.
See you, Joe.
All right.